Dr. Evelyn Reeves entered the Veltar Palace with nothing that resembled power. No weapons at her side, no insignia marking rank, no escort to announce importance, only a quiet composure that seemed almost fragile to those who did not understand it. The towering Veltar guards lining the corridors watched her with thinly veiled amusement, their gleaming, segmented armor catching the light like polished chitin, their posture radiating the confidence of a species accustomed to dominance. To them, she was an anomaly, a lesser being wrapped in formality, a guest who had already lost before the game had begun. Reeves let that assumption settle comfortably into their minds, nurturing it with every measured step she took, every calm breath she drew, every moment of deliberate stillness she maintained. She understood something they did not, that perception, once accepted, becomes a cage, and those who build it rarely realize they are trapping themselves. Inside the vast banquet hall, power arranged itself in careful patterns disguised as diplomacy. Conversations flowed like currents beneath the surface, alliances forming and dissolving with subtle shifts in tone and posture. Reeves was placed in a position that ensured maximum visibility and minimum support, isolated in a way meant to remind her of her supposed vulnerability. The Veltar nobles began their quiet assault almost immediately, their words crafted to provoke, to belittle, to expose weakness. Questions came wrapped in politeness but sharpened with contempt, observations delivered with the expectation of reaction. Reeves met them all with restraint so precise it became disarming. She spoke rarely, and when she did, her responses were controlled, efficient, and impossible to exploit. More often, she chose silence, a silence that lingered just long enough to make others uncomfortable, to draw them into speaking further, revealing more than they intended. Where they expected emotion, they found stillness. Where they expected defense, they found nothing at all. The moment of humiliation, when it came, was theatrical in its execution. A careless gesture, too precise to be accidental, sent dark wine spilling across the pristine surface of the table and onto her dress. The room seemed to pause, anticipation tightening the air as every eye turned toward her, waiting for the reaction that would confirm their beliefs. Anger, embarrassment, indignation, any of these would have satisfied them. Instead, Reeves rose calmly, her movements unhurried, her expression unchanged. She observed the stain as if it were an inconvenience of no real consequence, remarked upon it with quiet detachment, and removed herself from the situation without granting the act the significance it demanded. In that instant, something subtle shifted. The spectacle they had created failed to produce the result they wanted, and in its absence, a different kind of tension took hold, one they did not yet recognize. Believing they had secured a minor victory, the Veltar allowed their guard to lower. Confidence replaced caution, and with it came carelessness. As the evening deepened and restraint gave way to indulgence, their conversations grew less guarded, their intentions less concealed. What had begun as calculated interaction slipped into genuine discussion, the kind that reveals more than strategy ever intends. Reeves remained as she had been from the start, quiet, attentive, unremarkable in appearance yet acutely aware of everything unfolding around her. She listened not only to the words spoken, but to the spaces between them, to the hesitations, the shifts in tone, the subtle contradictions that exposed deeper truths. Piece by piece, she assembled a complete understanding of their plans, their assumptions, and their vulnerabilities. What she discovered was not brute hostility but something far more insidious, a reliance on systems, on procedures, on the slow and methodical machinery of bureaucracy. The Veltar did not intend to defeat humanity through open conflict. They intended to discredit, to undermine, to manipulate the very structures meant to ensure fairness, turning them into instruments of quiet destruction. It was a strategy built on patience and precision, one that assumed its target would either fail to notice or be powerless to respond in time. Reeves recognized the brilliance of it immediately, and also its fatal flaw. Systems, once set in motion, do not discriminate in their function. They follow evidence, respond to input, and execute outcomes with impartial certainty. And the Veltar, in their confidence, had provided her with everything she needed to redirect that process. She did not challenge them. She did not confront them. Instead, she appeared to accept the inevitability of her position, to consider their proposals with the seriousness of someone preparing to concede. This, more than anything, convinced them of their success. In their desire to formalize that success, they documented their intentions, clarified their reasoning, and constructed a narrative that would justify their actions. Every detail they recorded, every explanation they refined, strengthened the illusion of control they believed they possessed. What they failed to understand was that documentation does not belong to the one who creates it, it belongs to whoever knows how to use it. When Reeves acted, she did so quietly and with absolute precision. The information she had gathered was not presented as accusation but as evidence, not as resistance but as compliance with established process. She engaged the very systems the Veltar trusted, feeding them data so complete and undeniable that the outcome became inevitable. Inspections were triggered, reviews initiated, oversight expanded, not as an attack, but as a natural consequence of the information provided. The machinery turned, impartial and relentless, and as it did, the narrative the Veltar had constructed began to unravel. What followed was not chaos, but collapse, slow, controlled, and inescapable. Alliances fractured under scrutiny, confidence gave way to uncertainty, and those who had spoken most boldly began to distance themselves from their own words. The certainty that had once unified them dissolved, replaced by the quiet realization that they had misjudged something fundamental. Reeves did not need to expose them, they revealed themselves. She did not need to defeat them, they dismantled their own position in the process of trying to secure it. In the end, there was no dramatic confrontation, no decisive moment of victory that could be easily identified. Instead, there was only the quiet acknowledgement of a shift that could not be reversed. The structures meant to exclude humanity now depended on it. The systems designed to weaken it had, through their own logic, strengthened its position. And at the center of it all stood the figure they had once dismissed, a woman who had arrived without visible power and left having reshaped the balance of it entirely. Reeves departed as she had arrived, alone, unarmed, and outwardly unchanged. Yet the difference lay not in her appearance, but in what had been set into motion. She carried no trophies, claimed no victories, and sought no recognition. What she left behind was far more enduring, a recalibrated system, a fractured opposition, and a lesson etched into the memory of those who had witnessed it. Strength does not always announce itself. Power does not always need to be seen. And the most decisive victories are often the ones that unfold quietly, in the space between assumption and understanding, where those who believe they are in control unknowingly place the outcome in someone else's hands.